And I want to thank Administrator McCarthy, Assistant Secretary Darcy, for your patience and testimony here today, and really for your good work over the course of several years. It is remarkable how much public process you have brought to this issue, how much science and how many iterations of peer review and analysis have gone into this. The fact that we've had drafts and revisions and a listening tour that really is more extensive than anything I've seen in my short time here in Congress. And I think the real story of what you've done here is a story of the way a serious rulemaking ought to work. You've frankly just done good work, and I want to commend you for that. And you've maintained your patience in the face of, I think, some pretty outlandish accusations about this proposed rulemaking. In fact, if there's any story from today's hearing, I think it has to be how weak and unfounded and just plain wrong some of the claims about this rulemaking are. We've seen a map that was never intended to depict Clean Water Act jurisdiction or even jurisdictional expansion, but it was represented that way. And then when you clarified that the map appeared to be prepared for fisheries purposes or completely unrelated purposes, some of my colleagues across the aisle said they were very troubled by your answer. It's really rather remarkable what passes for congressional oversight sometimes. We saw a photo of something that seemed to be represented as a bit of a smoking gun, an erosion feature in a farm field, and yet when we had a chance to listen to you, we found that that's actually something that was found to be jurisdictional under the current rules, not under your proposed rulemaking, sort of illustrating the problem. The problem we have with the status quo that comes to us not through the exhaustive science and public process that you've brought to this issue, but it comes to us from a policy guidance that was handed down without any process, without any science, without any advance notice or comment from the Bush administration in response to some Supreme Court decisions, and the guidance that we're left with draws from two different Supreme Court justices' opinions who had two different ideas about how one ought to find jurisdiction under this matter, and leaves us with a case-by-case analysis that is cumbersome, that has been litigation-prone, that frankly leaves us with a status quo that nobody should be very satisfied about. So I'm glad you've taken on this tough issue. At the request, we need to always remember, of stakeholders, of the Supreme Court, of so many folks that have asked you to do this. And again, I think you've done very good work. I represent a lot of farmers and ranchers, a lot of forestry in the north coast of California, and I do continue to hear some of these concerns that you have very clearly, I think, spoken to on many, many occasions. But I just want to ask you one more time, are there any farming, ranching, or forestry discharge activities that are exempt from permitting today that would lose that exempt status because of anything you're doing in this rulemaking?
No, Congressman.
All right. And I know we continue to hear concerns about dry washes and even truck tire ruts and things that you have clarified many, many times. But I want to ask you where you're going with that process of clarification, because clearly, no matter how many times you say it, it doesn't appear to satisfy the folks who keep trotting out these examples. And I think I understand that you're going to try to address this through defining the term bed and bank. We saw a picture, I think, from Senator Capito of a, it was represented as a dry wash, but to me it looked like it might have had a bed and bank. I don't know. But I think we've heard that you may be in the process of providing some real definition of this bed and bank standard, science-based definition. Can you just tell us what we might expect in the final rule on that point?
Because of the public comment on that issue in particular, because that's part of the definition of tributary, which is being defined for the first time ever in the Clean Water Act and in regulation. And I think because it was the first time the definition was out there, and the definition is it has to have a bank and an ordinary high water mark, that is getting a lot of comment. And I think part of the comment is, so further define that. And I think in response to public comments, that's probably a challenge for us to address in the final rule.
So you think we can expect some specific definition of this bed and bank standard?
I think we need to consider it, especially because it's raised concerns. And again, we're trying to get certainty. And if we can better get some certainty here, that's the way to do it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Senator Carper,